All right, so what are some of the fun things and useful things that we can do with strings in Python? Well, there's a few concepts that I want to talk about here. So what we're going to do is go ahead and open up a Python interpreter. You can do this in PyCharm by going to View, Tool, Windows, and then selecting Python Console, or you can open up Terminal and type Python 3 and hit Enter. However you enter this, if you want to follow along, that's probably helpful because I find if you're told how to do something, you kind of know how to do it. But if you actually do it yourself, you have a better handle on what happens, and you're more likely to remember how it works. So from here on out, uh, basically what I want you guys to do is to follow along with your code and do everything that I do. So with that being said, one of the first things that we're going to do is, in a previous video, when we were talking about numbers, I showed you how to convert strings into numbers if the only thing in that string were numbers. So this is going to be kind of the opposite. Let's say you have a few values. Let's say you have the number 6, right? And you want to print out this costs $6. You can't just well, actually, first we're going to talk about concatenating because you can't do that in Python. I'm going to show you how. But first, let's learn how to concatenate a string, which means how to glue multiple strings together. So we saw this actually in the numbers video as well when we tried to add numbers that had been identified as the string, or yeah, the string type. And what it did was concatenate the numbers, and it made 5 and 6. When you add them together, it made it equal 56. And so that's, you're gluing strings together. So I'm going to say hello, and then pop out of that string, put a plus sign. And then in this string, I'm going to type Nick. Now what's going to happen is it's going to print out hello Nick because I'm concatenating these two strings. You can also do this with however many instances of strings you want. So if I really wanted to get a little bit convoluted, I could do this. And this would print out hello using 5 strings all concatenated together. Now what happens if I want to say this costs $6? Well, because part of this line is an integer, it's going to try and use those plus symbols to perform a mathematical operation rather than printing out a string. Actually, it's the opposite. It can't convert the integer to a string. So it knows that we want to concatenate some strings together, but it's like, well, hey, hold up. This is not a string. I don't know what to do with this. So what we have to do is use the string function, which is similar to the int function. So how we do that is this costs $6. And what this is going to do is it's going to convert the number 6 to a string so that it can be used. Now you can also perform mathematical operations within the string parameter, I believe. So let's test this out. This costs, let's go 6 plus $5. Let's hit enter. Yeah, so it can perform mathematical operations within that parameter. It's going to convert the sum, or the result of whatever mathematical operation you're performing on it. It's going to convert that to a string and then use that string to be concatenated with the other strings that you're working with. So that's how to use the string function, and maybe this doesn't seem like it's going to be important, or maybe it does, but you're like, well, how often do you use this? We're going to see, because when we get into defining some functions, we're going to be using both strings and integers to return certain information, and so this is going to be important at that point. So that's how to convert integers to strings. It will also work for any other type. So if you have true, We're going to get into that after, actually, but we're going to be using this string function again at a later point. Now, what happens when you want to do the opposite of concatenating strings? So think of concatenation. I'm not sure if that's the appropriate term. Think about concatenating two strings as, actually, let's look that up. Now, it's going to open up Xcode. Let's just go into Google here, because if I'm saying that wrong, I want to know. Yeah, okay, concatenate. Good stuff. I'm not sure if you guys heard that, but I'm using that word correctly. Good stuff. All right, so anyway, back to the code. That's how you concatenate two strings together. What happens when you want to do the opposite and you want to split strings apart? So let's say we have this string. Like this. So we're going to say hello. We're going to separate that word from the other word with a colon so that we actually have a character that we can use to split. So what we're going to do is after that string, we're going to put a dot. We're going to call a function split on it. And the split function or method takes one parameter. Well, for the sake of this video, it takes one parameter, and that's where you want the string to be split. So we're going to split it at the colon there and hit enter. What it's going to do is it's going to create an array with all elements that had been split from that point. So for instance, it split it into two items in the array, but let's say I did this, it's going to have an array with 3 values in it. And then we could reference those values by its index number. So this is going to be a bit more complicated. Let's say we're splitting it at this. So let's concatenate that. Let's say my name is so we want this to print out my name and not hello world and not anything else. So what we're going to do is put 2 square brackets and the number 1. And it's going to say my name is Nick. I'm not sure if that's a bit too complicated, so I'm going to try and explain it again from the beginning. So we have a string, we have it say my name is, and then a space, and then we concatenate it with the result of this right here. So this can be broken down into a few parts. Here's the string that we're performing the split function on. Okay. Then we're calling split on it, and this is going to turn this string into an array with 3 values, each with an index. It's going to split it into hello, Nick, and world, and stuff those values into its own array. And then we can access the result of this by using an index number here in square brackets. So we're calling the index number 1. So hello would be 0, Nick would be 1, and world would be 2. So what's happening is it's printing out my name is Nick. Now you might be thinking, shouldn't it be printing out my name is hello if we're using the number 1 here? This isn't so much Python, but it's a concept in programming in general. No. So 0 equals 1. If you have an array, the first item in it you think would equal 1, but it actually equals 0. And we'll talk more about arrays, which are actually called lists in Python. We'll talk more about those coming up in, I think not the next video, but the video after the next one. So that's how you can manipulate strings in a very basic way. We might expand on this in the future. We actually probably will. So next, we're going to be talking about Booleans.